How's it going, guys? It is Foxy98 here, and welcome back to a brand new video for you guys today here on the channel. Today we are here for another episode of my F1 2020 My Team career mode for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for the Italian Grand Prix, and as you can see by the look of my character, we are ready for a fight as per usual. And if you guys have enjoyed today's video, feel free to drop it a like, and if you're new around here as well, be sure to subscribe to the channel in order to help us out make our way towards 20,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. Now, as you can see, first thing that we're going to be doing, we've got enough resource points now to go ahead and purchase a major engine upgrade, which should be on the card just in time for the Japanese Grand Prix, which is kind of a power circuit anyway. So, yeah, I decided to get that major engine upgrade on. I just feel like it is necessary after last episode, yeah, for me, I think it's something that we need to get onto the car, and it'll be a good addition to the car itself. In terms of today's race, I'm going to put on a completely brand new power unit for the Italian Grand Prix. No reason why, I just want maximum power. Plus, I've got all these engines, because, of course, every time I get knocked out in Q1, I keep giving myself a fresh power unit. And also, as well, I am one race away from being able to change my gearbox without penalty. It's on 62%. It should be okay for this Grand Prix, but it does mean if we can get through with it, we've made significant advantages in terms of the durability on the gearbox side of things. But as you can see, there is the R&D chart there. We're going to go straight into qualifying, in which we're greeted with some wet weather. As per usual, pretty much, I think, looking at other creators' career modes, I think I've had the most wet weather. Maybe I could be wrong on that one, but I've had 3 wet races, I believe, now, and many wet qualifying. So, yeah, putting that out there, Cody's clearly likes giving it wet to me, you know. As you can see then, we're going to keep going with this session. A little bit skirmish on the exit there. Couldn't really quite get the back end to work with me, and we come across the line in P4. We know that time is going to definitely improve, and as you can see now on my second flying lap here, we're currently purple in the first 2 sectors as we now go in towards the final sector. So you can see the track is really ramping up now as we're going fastest of anybody so far in this qualifying session, as we now get our way, tiptoe ourselves around. Verstappen now sets a new fastest lap time for 1:27.4. We're going to come across the line and set a 1:28.0 to go 0.2 of a second shy of Albon in P3 there. So a good first lap there from myself, and I was happy with that, and obviously it did get us through into Q2, but the top all the cars that got through into Q2 were separated by less than a second. So really, really close qualifying session. Then you got Williams. Yeah, really, really close then in Q1. So that was kind of nervy. It's Q2, and I decided to just go out for one final run right at the end of the session, because the track was set to dry up, and indeed it is. So we're going to have pretty much the best of the conditions here with the track at its driest and its grippiest. So let's see if this is enough then, as we continue to get a little bit of trouble on the back end. Now we come across the start-finish line there. It's a 1:27.4, so it's the lap time that Verstappen set in Q1, and it is P6. So going out right at the very end of the session gives us a chance through in towards Q3 then. And really, really happy with that then, as you can see all of our XP coming in, which means nothing, and you can see that we're 0.3 of a second off the pace there, as of course that condition really, really helped us out. Actually, I was really impressed with the overall pace of the car in this session, but of course this is only in the wet, so we'll have to see how we get there in the dry. Speaking of the dry, right at the very end of Q3 then, the track did indeed dry up, so we're going out now on our only flying lap here in the dry and seeing what we've got now, as of course this is quite a difficult lap actually for me, because the back end was sort of still quite unstable at various different points. It's a 1:23.6 as we cross the start-finish line, and it's good enough for P9 on the grid here at the Italian Grand Prix. And of course, I actually sacrificed qualifying because for the race, I've gone with a very, very low downforce setup, and I've literally put as minimal wings on. But let's address the bubble in the room. Sergio Perez has gone 0.8 quicker than anybody else and is on pole position for the Italian Grand Prix. I don't know what you've had, and I don't know what Mercedes-Benz you're driving. Clearly you're driving the W12, for goodness sake, because that is a ridiculous lap time. And I'm kind of shocked by that one. But for this race weekend, I'm running with 2 wings. I'm literally going all-out straight-line speed. And if it screws me, it screws me. But, I mean, it's Monza. It's the temple of speed. So we should be fine. Anyway, Claire's asking me some questions. Of course, we know about Claire. Quite frankly, I'd rather be interviewed by Trump, because at least sometimes I can laugh at him properly. And also, if he interviews me, at least then we can actually, you know, face-to-face start a war, because that'd be kind of cool. But as you can see then, in terms of did I feel things went well, they actually went quite well for me, but didn't affect the team acclaim, which was quite weird. And the last one, I pretty much could just pick something to make the team happy, and I picked the power unit side of things because at the end of the day we were rapid in a straight line. First sector I believe we were quickest actually than anybody else, and unfortunately though our battle with Alexander Albon didn't go to plan in the qualifying, and he now pulls away 20 points to 17 in the rivalry. It's actually quite close between us two, and the team acclaim, we are level 9, Aiken is level 8, and I believe our acclaim bonus should actually be, oh no, it goes down a bit. Well, that just sucks. Oh, well, that's depressing. Right, let's get into the race.
We're back in Italy once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. And what a great race is in store for us today here at the oldest circuit on the calendar. Monza hosted its first race all the way back in 1922. With top speeds reaching 215 miles per hour, only a few places can challenge Monza's crown as the fastest circuit in F1. Hard braking zones going into the 3 chicanes make up the majority of the 11 corners on this 3.6 mile circuit. And just in case the slipstream wasn't enough, 2 DRS zones will help encourage some closer action. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Why don't we start by talking about Valtteri Bottas? They've had to change their gearbox. It's never a good start to a Grand Prix when, right off the bat, you have to contend with a grid penalty.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always better to take some pain now than parking it up halfway through the Grand Prix. Let's just hope they can put that new gearbox to good use and get the results they're looking for.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. It's Sergio Perez on pole position today, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton and Albon, Bottas, Ricciardo, Thomas and Lance Stroll, Sainz, Ocon, Lando Norris and Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen, Aitken, Grosjean, Russell and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Alright then, so as you can see we're on the grid here to start the Italian Grand Prix, and it's going to be yet another simple one-stop strategy, starting on the soft tyres, going to the mediums. Then as you can see now on the grid here we've got 5 red lights, and it is lights out. We're going then to start the Italian Grand Prix, and Perez gets away very well from pole position as we now try and blast our way through the field. Perez now has to cover the Ferrari Sebastian Vettel, and he does so now as we're going to go towards the inside line for the first chicane and try and gain a couple of places. Then we've got past Stroll and Ricciardo. Now we're side by side with Albon and Bottas, but I get a bit of contact there between myself and Albon as Bottas hit Albon, Albon hit me, and that means that we lose a little bit of ground, but we've got in front of Stroll, Ricciardo and Bottas off the start line now, so that's a great start for us as Perez is blitzing away out front. Go on, my son. As we now go in towards the first chicane here, or the second chicane, should I say now. We get a fantastic run on the exit, though, to fluster Alex Albon side by side with the London-born tight driver now, as we go down the inside into the first of the Lesmos, and we make that move stick, forcing him wide there. Bottas takes the position away from him as well. Verstappen slipstreaming Albon. Verstappen is slipstreaming Hamilton onto the straight now, and we're trying to close the gap. Onto that 3 of the Grand Prix now, and as you can see, Sergio Perez still leads this Italian Grand Prix, but the 2 red Ferraris are very much stalking the back of that racing point. For us, though, we're sitting quite comfortably in the slipstream of Verstappen. I'll tell you what, though, it's very, very hard to stay with them. Despite the fact that I am in their slipstream, it is proving very, very difficult. And here comes Valtteri Bottas, then goes towards the outside line. I have to block it off slightly, and he covers that. Dummies towards the inside line. Bottas taking a second line in towards chicane. Big lock up then from the Mercedes, and we're going to swoop round the outside and hold that position as Verstappen there overtakes Lewis Hamilton for fourth place, should I say, in this Italian Grand Prix. Both Ferraris then literally on the back of Sergio Perez. You can see on the minimap, Ricciardo now has overtaken Albon. I think Albon is having some problems in this Grand Prix now. That 4 of the race, and again, Perez still leading out front, and we're again still sitting nicely, but again, you can see the dirty air just affecting my car quite a lot in this Grand Prix, and on a straight, yeah, fine, I've got all the pace in the world. Through the corners, I really don't have that much pace, and Bottas now is going to seize the opportunity here, and he gets past us even just before the DRS open there, and Valtteri makes his way now up into 5th place. But as you can see, clearly we have got ourselves a nice gap. I had a little look into the first chicane, see if I could try and get myself back in front of Bottas, but no luck on that occasion. Bottas secures the overtake, and now I've just got to see pretty much, can I stay in range of these guys and stick in their slipstream. Gap 3.5 seconds between myself and Ricciardo, and luckily being in the slipstream of the fastest cars on the grid, really is allowing me to pull away. As you can see there, one of the Ferraris has overtaken Sergio Perez, and now the other one has taken over Sergio Perez. Now both the Mercedes and Verstappen are on the back of Sergio Perez here, so they're getting all hot under the cover here, trying to overtake the Racing Point as we now go down in towards the first chicane here, braking a little bit early just to make sure that I don't smash into the back of them. And as you can see, Perez has lost to both Mercedes cars on the straight, so Perez having an awful portion of this Grand Prix here. And now myself and Verstappen fancy running in here as we now go through in towards the Curva Grande here, now down in towards the chicane. I'm getting a little bit of a wheel on the grass then, but now we're going to take our time here, brake a little bit early into the chicane because I know they're going to compromise themselves. And as you can see, that swoop past on through, brilliant traction on the exit then, and in towards the Lesmos. We're back in for, not back in front, but we get ourselves in front of Perez and also Verstappen there. So beautiful bit of play there between myself in that moment, in that occasion. I knew that the AIs, because of when I overtook Albon on the first lap, lose a little bit of time if they go side by side through there. So I thought to myself, why not just do the same thing as what they've done? Speaking of what they're doing, or what, I don't know, I've lost track of my commentary right now, but Bottas and Hamilton have just overtaken each other. Hamilton now up into third, Bottas into fourth, and I'm now composing myself in this race in fifth, and also trying to compose my commentary because it's quite frankly, as I said, terrible at this stage as we now try and see if we can put some pressure on Bottas, and that's exactly what we do. Bottas with a big lock up then, loses crucial amounts of places then, and that is us now up into fourth place, so thank you very much, Valtteri. I will take that off your hands. Lap 11 of the Grand Prix, and we're coming in now for our one and only stop to the medium compound tyres. I was able to follow Lewis Hamilton quite nicely in this stint, but Hamilton has gone for the undercut, so he came in a lap early. We stayed out one lap longer, and the undercut is very powerful on this year's game. So let's see if we can try and make the overcut work on this game. You never know, but as we come into the pits now, luckily for us, we're all the way down the very end of the pit lane, so we don't have to really wait around here. Vettel there, I think he might have to have waited a little bit for us, although I think we were a bit far clear of that, as here come my guys stopping me now. Dude, I'm not in a Mercedes-Benz. I want to be in a Mercedes-Benz, but I'm not. Okay, there we go. I really should just stop using the replay cameras for the pit lane because it doesn't show me. It just shows Mercedes all the time. All right, I know they're the best. But speaking of doing the overcut, that is Lewis Hamilton right there, and we are in front of Lewis Hamilton. So the undercut did not work for Hamilton. He stopped for hard tyres. We went out a lap longer on soft tyres, and we still had the pace advantage that we are in front of the Mercedes. Vettel leads the Grand Prix. My teammate Aiken is actually getting involved. He now jumps into the pits here. Now, of course, Charles Leclerc is coming down the end of the pit lane. So can we do the undercut on Charles Leclerc and do the overcut on Lewis Hamilton? It's going to be very close, but we do so. So the overcut didn't worked on Lewis Hamilton, and the undercut worked on Leclerc. So we've done both forms of cuts in this Italian Grand Prix, and now P2 is in the bag, but we know how difficult it is to stay in front of these cars. Like I said, the slipstream was really giving me a massive, massive boost. Lap 13 of the Grand Prix, Vettel is 2.5 seconds up the road. Leclerc 3/10 behind me. So this is going to be fun with no slipstream on anyone and no DRS to use. Unfortunately, I'm just going to have to go ultra defensive here as Leclerc now is getting onto the back of us here with the DRS now wide open in that Ferrari car. We're using all of the straight line speed that I've put into this car, and I've literally maxed it out. We're going to force Leclerc a little bit wide in towards turn 1, but Leclerc gets a very easy run, and he's through into second place now in this Italian Grand Prix. As we get onto the exit here, I actually got a very, very nice exit. So you know what? Let's come back at Leclerc then. In towards the Curva Grande we go now. Using a bit of ERS and some rich mixture. Getting sticking right into the slipstream. Going to wait for that inside line to appear open for me. As it does so, dive it down the inside on Charles Leclerc. Lovely overtake then. Back into second place in this Italian Grand Prix. And if I'm going to lose a lot of places to these Ferraris and these Mercedes boys, which is probably going to be evidential, I'm going to put a fight up. Because why the hell not? I don't care how many places I lose. I can defend against the midfield teams. If I'm fighting these front-running teams, I want to have some fun. But speaking of having some fun, Charles Leclerc doesn't want to have some fun. And he opens up the DRS in towards the Scari and breezes back past me. And probably is screaming some swear words in Italian at me because I'm annoying his race or ruining his race and his chances of winning as Vettel keeps pulling clear. Well, in fact, quite frankly, Charles, if you're going to swear at me, I'll bring the Korean mic back to you again onto the straight now. We're trying to close up to the back of Leclerc with that rear wing of the Ferrari very much in our sights. But here's what I'm talking about here. Watch as we go through this last corner now. We just lose a little bit of traction there on the exit. And actually, that was a very decent exit compared to all the other opportunities that I've had. And Charles Leclerc, you didn't like being behind the forced career. Well, guess what? Get back behind me again, because we're going to breeze past him with DRS into the first corner, and I've even got enough time to take the normal racing line, and I lost absolutely no time in doing that. In fact, all I did was gain time by doing that overtake. So there we go. job done. Back up into second place. Vettel, again, still 2.5 seconds up the road. But, oh, that's a bit of a tank slapper there through Ascari. Tom, get your act together as we now try and press onwards in this Italian Grand Prix. Leclerc has got a great run here. And, in fact, I decided to let Charles Leclerc through. Why not? You can take that position because there is a DRS zone coming right up, as you can see now. But this is a good example here. Look at the amount of pace that Leclerc can just gain off of the exit of the corner then. Pretty much like half a second there. So that just goes to show that we've still got a lot of work to do on this car. But in a straight line though, that work doesn't quite need to be adjusted against Charles Leclerc here, because we're going to breeze past the Ferrari driver. But he does come back in slightly in towards the first corner, and I have to take a slightly wider line through there. Not quite ideal for me. Would have preferred to have taken that quite easily. Could have braked a little bit later perhaps. But for me now versus Charles Leclerc here, he's having a little look, but we can defend against that quite simply now as we go through towards the Curve Grande here. And he's clearly not using the ERS, just sitting in behind, and I'm completely fine with that. But speaking of sitting in behind, he's bored of that once again because he wants to go for it. And you can see that I cleverly there just lifted off the throttle ever so slightly, just to allow myself to get the DRS on the straight here. But again, you can see Leclerc gets a fabulous exit, and he might even be using ERS to help with the exit there, which is something that I don't think I was utilising as much as I could have in this Grand Prix. But Leclerc now is going to try and fend this one off here. We're again using all of the straight line speed that we put into this car for this weekend. Of course, running with those 2-2 wings, really giving us an edge. And now as we go through towards the first chicane here, nice overtake there to get us past Charles Leclerc. Bit of wheel spin on the exit, but crucially, what is now starting to happen is the two other cars behind are now closing up, or should I say the three other cars behind are closing up. Leclerc repasses again as Danny Kvyat is out of the Italian Grand Prix, so bad news for the AlphaTauri driver. But for us, though, we're still trying to focus on the man in front, and that is Charles Leclerc. But that was a fantastic exit from Charles there, half a second clear now. But of course, I'm just going to do what I've been doing pretty much all race long, and I'm coming back at you again, my friend. Here I come with the DRS wide open, gaining on Charles Leclerc. Not as much as we have been before, trying to save some ERS, but we'll break a little bit later, let the car roll into turn 1 and 2, and there's your overtake done and dusted. Back through on Charles Leclerc. But crucially now, we've got Mercedes of Bottas, Hamilton, and the Red Bull of Verstappen all now back into the fight again. It's only Vettel that's free of it because, of course, he was much, much clearer during the stints of the Grand Prix. Leclerc has a little look in towards the chicane here. Bottas, though, will have a little look around the outside of Charles Leclerc, and Bottas makes it stick then on the Ferrari driver. So now Bottas is into third place now in this Grand Prix as we now go through in towards Ascari now, and Bottas is next on the hit list of myself here as we now are starting to lose a little bit of pace in the second half of the Grand Prix for Bottas. He fancies getting past me now, so here comes Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes-Benz driver, and he breezes past just before the final corner. And as you can see, we're now going in towards the Parabolica, literally tooth and nail until they get onto the power. And again, you can see that I just don't have the exit speed that they do to really mount any form of a challenge. But what I have got is the straight line speed to mount a challenge, because I'm just going to do what I've done before and attack you on the start-finish straight. And as you can see, we'll get past the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas and back into second place of the Italian Grand Prix. But we've got a hard lot of defending to do, with still 8 or 9 laps to go in this Italian Grand Prix of defending to do. Lap 19 of the Grand Prix, and somehow, somewhere, we've set the fastest first sector of the entire Grand Prix. I have no idea where that pace has come from. I probably slipstreamed in DRS, to be honest. But as you can see now, in towards the Parabolica, this is where it didn't quite go to plan this time around. Bottas decided not to overtake me in towards the Parabolica. I had the straight line speed to stay in front, which does mean Bottas has got the DRS on this straight now. I'll give it everything I've got. It's going to be a drag race now down towards turn 1. I'm using as much ERS and as rich mixture as I possibly can to try and defend this position, but Bottas sneaks into the lead, into second place of the Italian Grand Prix. No response there from myself. I'll try in towards the Curva Grande, but Bottas gets a brilliant exit from that corner. You can see that we are using some ERS. I probably actually could have used a little bit more to try and fight with Valtteri Bottas. But as you can see now, as we go through towards the Curva Grande, no luck there. But onto lap 20 of the Grand Prix, we are still in range of DRS from Valtteri Bottas, so we are going to have that to our advantage in our fight with this Charles Leclerc now, who's literally lurking in behind, trying to get an overtake down. But you can see Bottas there gaining a lot of time on the start-finish straight between myself and Leclerc. And another problem that we've got is that the ERS, you can see there, we're literally on 5% now, as we're doing everything we can to just fight with these drivers. We go in towards the first chicane, pretty deep actually through there. That's not quite the line I would have wanted to have taken, and that's going to give Bottas the freedom to dump away clear, and all the time that we did gain on the start-finish rate has now been mitigated by our issue in towards turn 1 there. So not the best run through there, but lap 22 of the Grand Prix now, and again, we're 9/10 of a second behind Valtteri Bottas, and you can see that we're doing everything we can. We've just about got DRS on Valtteri. It was so close then and it was literally 4/100ths of a second that was the difference there, but the gap now between myself and Bottas is 1.2 seconds, and we're not going to get any more DRS from the Mercedes driver. We'll close up on him, and we'll drop that gap down. You can see that gap coming down ever so slowly, down to 9/10, down to 8/10 of a second now. So on a start-finish rate, we're around about 4/10 of a second faster with DRS and a bit of, rich mixture to really help us out through there. But for us now, the fight is now for third place in this Grand Prix, unfortunately. I just don't have the pace against Valtteri Bottas. Gap now up to 1.4 seconds as Lewis Hamilton is the next man that fancies a run at me here. And he's going to go for it in a different place now. He's going to go for it in towards Ascari, and he's got everything turned up to the max there to try and go for that move. I tried to come back at Hamilton, but it was no use, and we get a little bit wayward there on the exit. Hamilton's tyres are going to be in a much better condition than mine, of course. And of course, you can see that we're also still down on fuel. I underfueled the car for this Grand Prix to try and help myself out, being a bit lighter. As Leclerc trying to come at me in towards Parabolica, I decided not to let him have that one, but he's going to switch back on me though into the exit of Parabolica. Very nice move there from the Ferrari man, but we're going to use the RS and rich mixture to try and defend against the Ferrari driver, and we do just that there. And I continue to use the RS here, try and get as close as I could to the back of the Mercedes of Hamilton, try and see if I can maybe use a little bit more ERS and DRS for that matter as well for the remaining laps of this Italian Grand Prix, but we'll just have to wait and see how we get on. But fuel is now becoming a bit of a problem here as we now go on to lap 25 of the Grand Prix. Again, same as Valtteri Bottas by 2/100ths of a second this time around on Hamilton. We just about get the DRS to fend ourselves off, but there it is. I was about to say I didn't think we got it then, but Leclerc now uses the power of the Ferrari to finally get past us here. We've been doing everything we can to try and fend off these guys, but unfortunately in these latter stages of the Grand Prix, I just don't have the pace. I tried to go around the outside of Leclerc, but I actually bumped his rear wing there. But yeah, I was giving it everything I could to try and defend against these guys, and defending for 25 laps now has been pretty much way beyond the expectations that I possibly could have thought of, as we now go on to lap 25, or the end of it now. You can see that we're still again in slight range of Leclerc, but Verstappen now is the man behind us again on those hard compound tyres, so he's going to have more tyre life than us in this stage of the Grand Prix, which is really going to give him a big advantage now. And as you can see, there goes Verstappen up into 5th place now in the Italian Grand Prix. And unfortunately, we are now starting to move backwards in this Grand Prix. But Verstappen did something that I've recommended to Leclerc and Bottas not to do, and that was overtake me into Parabolica. But annoyingly, Verstappen's got DRS, but we have started to really bring that fuel back down into a very nice range. So as we now go in towards the first corner here, annoyingly, I can't find a way past Verstappen on this occasion, but we get very close with the first 2 chicanes there. Brilliant run through that, and with that being said, let's lose some ERS here, and let's see how quickly we can gain on this Red Bull. In fact, I'll tell you what, it's quite a nice amount here. So as we now go through in towards the Curva Grande, down in towards the chicane, he covers towards the inside line, so I have to go around the outside here. It's a purple first sector, but we go around the outside of Verstappen. Beautiful overtake there from ourselves to regain 5th place in this Italian Grand Prix. And annoyingly, as you just see there through the Lesmos, watch the gears. We've actually now lost 5th gear, so that one gearbox that we've been talking about is now starting to give a bit of trouble here, because we've lost a critical gear in this Italian Grand Prix. Now with the final 2 laps to go, Verstappen now going to come back at us with DRS here in towards Ascari. He breezes past us through there and retakes 5th place in this Italian Grand Prix. And annoyingly, I've got no 5th gear now, so it's really going to cost me under braking and in acceleration. If I'd lost something like 2nd gear, I wouldn't really care too much, because I don't need to use 2nd gear apart from the first 2 chicanes, and I could probably get away without using it. But annoyingly, 5th gear is something that I really can't afford to lose, but annoyingly, I've lost it, and I'm just going to have to settle down with it. But now, onto the start-finish straight here. Verstappen this time around, compared to the last time, has not got anyone to fight with in front and use DRS by, and with that Honda power unit versus my Mercedes power unit and the straight line speed that we've got, see you later, thanks for coming, and very simple overtake there on the Red Bull driver, but it's so hard to get the car slowed down. We nearly missed the chicane there, but we are alright, we get away with it, and it means that we can hold the position as well against Verstappen. We won't have to get the place back, of course, because if I actually jumped over the chicane there, I would have had to have given the place back to Verstappen, but we don't have to, because we've made it stick just about. But we're on to the final lap now of the Italian Grand Prix. Vettel is out front. I pretty much gifted Vettel the win of this Grand Prix. So Seb, you can write a check and send it over to me, okay? As we now go in towards the Lesmos for the last time here. Again, you can see the gears just there. Still lost 5th gear at this stage of the Grand Prix. Really could have done with it, but unfortunately, I'm just going to have to settle without it as we now go onto the straight here. Verstappen is going to have DRS here to try and attack us. We're now positive in the fuel, which is great, but as you can see, Max is getting very, very close now as we go in towards this last part of this Grand Prix, and as we go in towards the Ascari, Ferrari. We do fend against Verstappen through here, and I've now got 20% ERS, which I'm just going to deploy absolutely everything now on this straight here, because Verstappen is going to come at me, and this time I'd rather he didn't overtake me in towards chicane, but I actually can save a little bit of ERS here, because now as we go in towards the Parabolica for the last time here, Sebastian Vettel wins the Italian Grand Prix for Ferrari in front of the Tifosi. What a great victory it is for Ferrari today. As we come across the line, it is a hard-fought 5th place here today. And I genuinely could not be more happier to have got such a great result here today. Bottas with the driver of the day. But for me, you know, I was so happy to be able to just bring the car home in such a great format, really. I was so desperately trying to just give a challenge, you know. And today I was able to stick into the slipstream. Yes, I was not as quick in the corners. But like I said, my setup this time around, like some races, my setup isn't, you know, too bad, and sometimes they're very good. But unfortunately, on this occasion, yeah, I feel like, you know, setting the car up was absolutely perfect today. You know, some races the setup wasn't so good. I go back to France for that. And then on other occasions the setup is great, such as Zandvoort, where we managed to make our way quite nicely through the field. But as you can see, Sebastian Vettel lifts the winner's trophy in front of the Tifosi home crowd as the champagne sprays here today. Yeah, like I said, for us though, it was a very difficult Grand Prix, and we just literally held on in there for dear life. But in the end, it worked out all pretty well. And as you can see then, having a look at the podium then, so it was Vettel ahead of the 2 Mercedes and then Leclerc. We managed to stay in front of the 2 Red Bulls. And then obviously, there is the rest of the grid all in order. Danny Kvyat was the only man to DNF from today's Grand Prix. So rest in peace, Danny, my friend. And as you can see then, looking at the Drivers' Championship, it is Vettel now that leads the championship ahead of the 2 Mercedes drivers by just 3 points. Charles Leclerc is 14 points back, starting to slowly slip away now from that championship race. Of course, we're in P4 in the Ferrari 5 in the championship, but we're nowhere near in title contention. Constructors' Championship, it's just 8 points now is the gap in there. So it's still super close at the top of the championship, and that's what we all like to see. Now, of course, some interviews to come on in. So we gained a lot of positions during the race, and our power unit really did stick us in there, especially at the top end speeds. In terms of acceleration, we're still lurking behind our rivals. We need to work on that. And as you can see then, there was I can't even remember, I didn't even look what that other question said, so you'll be the one to look out for that question. In terms of the rivalry breakdown versus myself and Alex Albon, we actually did a very good job then and actually beat Albon 4-2, meaning that rivalry is now 22-21, really close in there, and I'm really hoping that we can make amends and beat him in the rivalry, but we'll just have to wait and see on that front. Of course, it is a waiting game on that one, and obviously we're just going to have to hope for a great Singapore Grand Prix. We get a brilliant payout there of 770k, 777k, which is awesome. And then obviously, unfortunately for the overall cash, I took a lot of damage to deductions. I don't remember why, considering there's a race where I broke my front wing, I didn't get any damage reduction. So yeah, I don't know. This game's kind of weird. Back in towards the headquarters now. We're going to go ahead and probably purchase 1 or 2 upgrades, as well as maybe have a look at some of the facilities. At some point then, as well in this season, I am then going to be saving up all of my money and resource points, ready for a big haul of updates and developments, ready for the start of the new season. I think as I'm recording this one, I'm currently through towards Japan. And I think that's when we're going to be starting to save a couple of stuff. But as you can see, we've got some worn components, obviously, as we had a nice amount of gearbox problems in that Grand Prix. But we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up the activities for this one. So we're going to start off with a Supply HQ tour. Then we're going to do an aerodynamic equipment upgrade. And then we're going to do a chassis team building. Mainly because there was a lot of resource points up for offer there. So we're going to go ahead and do those. And then we've got 2.93 million. So I think I go ahead and upgrade a facility. Although I could be completely wrong. All these, of course, cost 5 million. We can't do these. So we're going to have to wait on that front, and we do so. There we go. So fabrication on the engine side of things. We've got 800 resource points. So yeah, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. We're going to go ahead and purchase another rear downforce to put onto the car. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed. And I will see you guys next time where it is the Singapore Grand Prix. So take care. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.